Hi, everyone. This is the Mike Gormley Show. And funny enough, this is Mike Gormley. We have a great guest on today. Her name is Janet Robin. I've known her for a long time. She's one of the best guitarists in the world, in my opinion. Does
Oh, that
amazing work.
that's what my mother says.
Yeah,
So
well, that's who told me to say it.
hi.
But hi.
Sorry to interrupt your introduction. It's
Oh, that's okay.
so great to see you, Mike.
It's good to see you. It's been an awfully long time, as we were discussing off the air, and it's
It
kind of
has.
silly now that I want to say now that the pandemic's died down, but then this thing came out today that the pandemic, then COVID is
It's
worse,
back.
worse than ever in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's a little scary. Yeah.
Yeah, but on this one, I guess we just keep on going.
Yeah, got to keep forging forward.
What you do during the pandemic? I mean, you just stay at home and play guitar, or you
Well,
couldn't gig.
no, that was disappointing. We couldn't, all of our shows got canceled. I did a couple of those online,
Yeah,
performances,
yeah.
which was slightly like disappointing. I mean, I had a good time doing them. It's just that, you give it your all and then there's no clapping. So so that was strange. But with my band, we managed to record. Oddly enough, we recorded separately and mixed everything together. And I continued teaching online. I also teach guitar. So my students just all went online and I got more students actually, luckily,
Oh,
during the
good.
pandemic. So I was busy.
That's great. Good way to spend that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I sat around twiddling my thumbs.
Yeah, I know it wasn't so easy for a lot of people. I just tried to make the most of it and try to make a living and keep things going. I could also still do some sessions, luckily too, because nowadays you can just send WAV files back and forth. So yeah,
Oh, cool. Well, you talk about being a teacher,
yeah,
and when you were very young, you had one hell of a teacher.
that is true. Yes, my teacher was Randy Rhoads. Those of you who know guitar should know who he is, and yeah, that was, what can I say? It was sort of a luck situation. He taught out of his mother's music school, which happened to be around the corner from my parents' house where I grew up in North Hollywood, California.
Mhm.
And my brother was taking electric guitar lessons, and I was taking acoustic guitar, and I wanted to move to electric. And he just loved Randy, and I begged and begged. I had to borrow my brother's electric guitar before I got my own. But yeah, I begged to take electric guitar, and yeah, my parents were like, okay, yeah, and so I started with him around age 9, and
Mm.
um, at the time, I really didn't see any other girls. I think he only had maybe one or other girl later. I was definitely the youngest, that's for sure.
Yeah,
And
9 sounds like
yeah,
there's a good chance of that.
yeah, I was, yeah. I mean, I started like on acoustic and folk and classical around 6 or 7. So I had a couple of years of that, and then went to electric, and he was amazing. What can I say? There was something so special about him and so genius. Even when you're young, you're like, okay, is this real? You're sort of still. I was bringing my neighborhood friends to my lessons. And by the way, the guitar lessons were 30 minutes for like $8.
Oh man,
you
what
know, and
a
and
dream.
he wasn't he became much more famous after he died. Of course, he reached a lot of fame in Ozzy's band while he was still alive, but at the time when he was teaching, he was in a local LA band called Quiet Riot,
Mm.
right? And they got bigger after he passed away as well, but they were quite big in LA. And yeah, around like 11, 12 years old, I was going with my parents, who
Mhm.
you've met. They were taking me to clubs like the Starwood and the Palomino. I was like,
I can see your parents doing that.
they were taking me, I could only get it in, chaperoned. So we
Yeah,
were going to see him, and that was my kind of first exposure to, the rock and roll scene,
yeah.
definitely out here too, as a young little rocker girl. And he was just, I think the biggest lesson I got out of him, besides his, amazing, just his amazing skills and all the things he taught me about guitar, was self-esteem. I think that's the biggest thing, because I think when you're surrounded by mostly boys who are playing, and, I wasn't playing guitar. I wasn't good at, like, with sports, and I tried everything, karate and, dancing, whatever. I was not good at it all. And I didn't see a lot of girls at the time playing guitar, but, he really could give a shit about that. He was just, if you practice and you're passionate about what you do and you work hard, yeah, he was gender blind. And that kind of gave me like a lot of self-esteem,
Oh, I imagine it would, especially somebody like that. But that, so you say you played somewhat when you were 6 and 7. By the time you got to him, you had some basic feel.
Yeah, I did. I had basic stuff, but I was, my brother was blasting Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, next to me in his bedroom. And I was like, oh, I want to play like that, and
Yeah.
it was so badass, and so when I got to him, I did have basic skills, but he took me further, especially with lead guitar, with solo playing, with scales, with riffs. But I do remember one very important thing. It was one of our first, lessons. He's like, if you don't know basic blues, you can't play guitar.
Really?
It's like, so we're going to start off with, like, just like basic blues and riffs, and also, chord progressions. And I remember, like, the first song we started on was Johnny Be Good. Contrary to what people might think, he's like this metal god, and yeah, he is, but he was very like an amazing blues guitar player. I just have to put that out there, because people have an idea of what Randy Rhoads is about. And yes, he does fit that. He comes from a classical background, and definitely the hard rock thing, but he made that very apparent in all our lessons. And I know other students that I've met, later in life, that they said the same thing. I was like, okay, then I wasn't making this up. It was true, So yeah, he was really special to my journey in playing guitar. And I just really missed the fact that he's not around anymore, to see that I kept it going. I stayed in touch with his mother. She passed away. I am at least still in touch with his sister and his brother, and they have various events, to celebrate Randy's life and stuff. And of course, my band, The String Revolution, we re-recorded a version of Crazy Train. And, I'm happy to always talk about him. And he was just a huge part of my guitar upbringing.
There's a lot of musicians I meet, and a lot of guitarists who have a classical background. I mean, they're rock guitarists, some jazz guitarists, and so on and so forth. But they seem to need to know the basics of an entirely different kind of music, classical music.
Well, frankly, if you think about it, classical music and like metal is actually quite similar.
Yeah, it is.
In themes, in the chords, that they use together, and big, dark, daunting themes and things like that. What was very interesting about Randy was, like, Crazy Train is a perfect example, because he mixed sort of a classical da 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 da, that thing. But then he goes to, like almost like a Steve Miller pop song, So, and then you've got Ozzy singing, his metal thing. So he he brought all this together in one great package.
Not to do a Randy Rhoads tribute, but were you around when he got the Ozzy gig? Were you connected?
Oh yeah. I
must have been blown away.
Oh my God, it was huge. I studied with him from 9 till about 15. I think it was 15. 15. he got the gig with Ozzy, and we were like, oh my God, you know. But then, of course, I was just thinking, like, I'm losing my guitar teacher. But we were all very happy for him. He was really, you know, Quiet Riot was really trying to make things happen. They were very big out here. They did a record that came out in Japan that did quite well for them. But, you know, getting the Ozzy gig just catapulted him to a way other level. And I kept taking lessons from Musonia. That was the name of the school, from a replacement. It was a student, I think, of his. And all the way, you know, I kept taking till like through high school. But yeah, I remember, you know, when I got the call from my mom, she called my high school, and they pulled me out of class, and my mom said, I have something, you know, bad to tell you. And it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I was 15. Yeah. When
That's
that
a shocker.
It was a shocker.
But okay.
Yeah.
You're 15, getting lessons from Randy Rhoads. Was your very first band Precious Metal?
I would say my very first professional band, you know, that got a record deal and, you know, became more known. I was in all these little neighborhood, you know, rock bands, and they're all, of course, all boys. But I have to say that my very first actual pro gig, meaning when you get paid, right, for a show, that's when you consider yourself, you know, a pro.
You're
I
a
was
pro.
12, and I was in my band called Rocks, ROXX. And the singer was the nephew of John Travolta.
Really?
Yes. Yep. And his mother was the actress Ellen Travolta.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was an actor, you know, popular for a while. And his mother and Joey Travolta, the brother, and John Travolta hired our band to play for Father Travolta, right? The grandfather, for his birthday party at like a rec room in an apartment complex somewhere in like Sherman Oaks. And it was so exciting because we played our little set, and then John came up. And, you know, I'm like, oh my God, you know, Grease, you know, Saturday Night Fever. And he's like, you guys were great. And he wrote us $100 check.
Oh.
So
you're pro. You're pro.
Yeah, my first gig was a pro gig being paid by John Travolta. But yes, as far as like in the business, Precious Metal, I got into Precious Metal when I was still in high school. I was 16 and I was a senior in high school when I answered an ad in a now defunct newspaper called Recycler.
It's a good place. A lot of musicians came out of that.
A lot. And the reason the ad appealed to me was it said forming all-girl band, you know, hard rock band. So of course the Bangles, who I know you worked with, and the Go-Go's, and they were around, and I really loved them. I did, but I was like really into more hard rock. And this was very appealing to me. And also it was all girls. I was like, okay, well, we're going to be all on a level playing field. It was always an issue with the boys. They either wanted to date me or kill me, you know. I was better than them in some ways, or they were threatened, you know. It was always weird, you know. So I thought, I'm going to try this and see how this goes, you know.
So, and it went well for a while.
For nearly 7 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Frankly, yeah, right at like a year later, we got signed, you know, to Polygram.
Well, let's get back to Precious Metal. We have to go to a commercial. We're going to go to a commercial in with a Janet Robin song called "View from Above."
Woohoo!
Is that a good choice?
I think it is. Yeah, one of my solo records I put out a while back.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. So we'll head out to commercial, and then we'll be back in a minute. This is the Mike Gormley Show, and we're here at your convenience.